And so December is, in fact, a very powerful time to start something new. It's a season when many people are wrapping up the new year, reflecting on their accomplishments, planning for the year ahead. But for some, it's the perfect moment to take that first bold step toward launching something that they've been dreaming about, pondering about all year long, like a podcast. So, in today's episode, we'll explore why podcasting or why launching your podcast right now during the first week, in fact, of December is a strategic and impactful strategy. I'll also share some lessons, of course, from my journey as I normally do as a podcaster, as a launch strategist, and I'll also share some tips for getting started, as well as a few biblical principles I believe will inspire you along the way. So let's get started.
In the podcast jungle with a mic to machete, Aldreama Harper, she ready and steady. Organized planner with a plan, never petty. Dropping gems, got my thoughts feeling heavy. Podcast launch pad where the dreams take flight. Entrepreneurial spirit out of sight, out of mind. Every episode, knowledge taking flight. Getting organized, keeping hustle tight. All dreamers got the wisdom, breaking it down. Clarity and chaos, wearing that crown. Growth for your biz, success all around. In the podcast world, she's renowned. Infused with hustlers, grinding the gears. Trailblazers speaking, no fear, no tears. Each story told, driving through the years. Future brighter than the stars, crystal clear. Mic check, she's speaking bold. Organizing dreams, let the stories unfold. Startup grind, worth more than gold. All dreamers roadmap, mission control. All dreamers got the wisdom, breaking it down. Clarity and chaos, wearing that crown. Growth for your biz, success all around. In the podcast world, she's renowned.
So, December is often overlooked as a time to launch something new. People think that, it's too late. It's too late in the year. I'm just going to start fresh at the beginning of the year. Everybody's too busy with the holidays. But here's the thing. Starting your podcast now can actually give you a head start. Because while everyone else is waiting for January to roll around when they start all of these new year, these new plans and New Year's resolutions and all of these type of New Year shenanigans, you will already have some momentum. You'll have an audience. You'll have clear direction. And you won't be starting from scratch. You'll be scaling, right? You'll be scaling what you've already begun. And so I've seen this firsthand, and it may not specifically apply to the month of December, but what I have seen firsthand with one of my clients who started and launched what may seem like an off season. So let's call it an off season. Okay. So one of my clients recently launched her podcast, right? And so we're talking about December now. And so we used one of my favorite strategies, most powerful strategies. And with one episode, she was able to reach 300, but she gained nearly 50 followers. In fact, it was 47 the last time I checked with one episode. Now, you may say, well, that's, so, but here's the thing. Again, that was one episode. She's only released one episode. And because of that strategy, by the time January hits, we will likely have doubled that number at the very least. Okay, at the very least. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm super excited about that. And I believe that is a huge accomplishment. Okay. And so when I think back to when I launched my first podcast, and I've shared this many times, there are only 12 episodes. I had a passion. but I lacked focus. I lacked strategy, and I wasn't clear. So I had my own doubts. And so it really wasn't until I really began to embrace a very clear framework that I now teach my clients that things begin to click for me, right? And that one principle is based on a biblical principle that I've taught my clients in business when launching business, but now I also teach them this strategy based on this principle for their podcast. And it actually changed everything for me. It changed everything for my client. And that principle really is just based on the fact that you start with what you have and you trust the process. Okay. Now, that may sound very common to a lot of people, but guess what? Most of the time, what we're doing is looking outside of ourselves when we start anything. Okay. And for whatever reason, we focus on lack, we look outside of ourselves, and we just get in our head and think about what we do not have. Okay. So start with you have and trust the process. So there's a story in the Bible that perfectly illustrates this point, and I have shared this many times. I'm going to just share the short version for this episode for the sake of time, but it is in 2 Kings 4 verses 1 through 7 when a widow approached the prophet Elijah and she was desperate for help. She had nothing but a small jar of oil. And so the prophet, when she approached him, the prophet instructed her to gather up as many empty vessels as she could find and pour oil into them. And miraculously, the oil kept flowing until every vessel was filled. Now, we don't have time to explore all of this because even just that last statement, the oil kept flowing until every vessel was filled. Like, that's a whole sermon all by itself, right? But again, we don't have time to really dive into that. But when you're starting a podcast, it might feel like you don't have much, because one of the first things she said to the prophet, was that, well, I only have, right? Which is where we normally start. Well, I only have, and you fill in the blanks. Maybe just an idea or a handful of tools. But when you pour what you have into the process, trusting that it will grow, trusting God for the results, you'll be amazed. And so a lot of you are asking yourself, even as you may be listening to this episode, what if I don't have fancy equipment? Because that's one of the first questions that I get. What equipment do I need? What do I need to buy? So what if I don't have fancy equipment? I only use what you have. If you have a smartphone and a quiet room, guess what? You can start there. You have a smartphone and earbuds. You can start there. Well, what if I'm not ready? Guess what? None of us are 100% ready. That's why faith is so important, right? Use the resources. Step out. The resources you need will meet you along the way. Well, what if nobody listens? Let me ask you this. Would you still share your message even if it was just one person that listened? Because that one person might be the connection that changes everything, right? So just imagine you launch your podcast with one episode as a heartfelt introduction where you share your story and why you're passionate about that topic, whatever that is. And let's just say a listener just stumbles upon it. Someone that's been searching for answers in the very thing that you are addressing on your podcast. And then they subscribe. And then they share it with a friend. And then they send you a message thanking you for your insight. That is the power of starting where you are with what you have and trust the process. It's very powerful. Okay? So let me share a few other biblical principles with you, and then we will move on through the episode. So let's 3 principles. The power of stewardship, which is very significant in this whole thing. Luke 16:10 says, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Your podcast, even in its early stages, is something you are stewarding. So if you view it as stewardship, you treat it with care, you nurture it, you watch it grow. It's a biblical principle that's very powerful. It's the power of stewardship. Here's another one. Faith in action. James 2:26 reminds us that faith without works is dead. If you've been praying about launching your podcast, it's time to pair that prayer with action and take the first step, even if it's not perfect, which it will never be, by the way. Third principle, reaching for ones. In Luke 15:4, verse 4, the parable of the lost sheep, where the shepherd leaves the 99 to find the one. Your podcast might not reach the masses right away, but it could profoundly impact that one person that needs your message, right? Biblical principles. These are biblical principles for launching your podcast and actually for launching anything. Start with what you have, where you are, and trust the process. Now, I want to give you 5 steps to launch right now. These are 5 steps that you can deploy in your podcasting endeavors that you can start right now. Right now. Okay? Number 1, define your message. Ask yourself, what is the core message I want to share with people? Who is my audience? What transformation do I want them to experience just by listening to my podcast? Okay? Define your message. Number 1. Number 2, please keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate the process. Just start with an introduction episode, a short and sweet description of who you are and why you're starting this podcast. Keep it simple. Number 3, create a launch plan. You got to have a plan. I'm telling you, that is why I have 12 episodes on my first podcast. But on this one, where I'm sharing with you now, I am almost at 150 episodes. I had a plan. So set a realistic schedule for your first few episodes. Focused on quality rather than perfection. So let me say that in the right way. Create a launch plan. Set a realistic schedule for your first few episodes. Focused on consistent quality content rather than perfection. And consistency is, let me tell you, that will take you a long way. So that's number 3. Number 4, leverage the season. This is a time of reflection. December is a time that people begin to reflect. So create episodes that tie into these themes, like gratitude, goal setting, personal growth. These are topics that naturally draw listeners in as they prepare for the new year. So leverage the season. And lastly, but promote strategically. Use social media, email, newsletters, even word of mouth to let people know about your launch. Share your excitement and your authenticity because it's contagious. Oh my gosh. So define your message, keep it simple, create a launch plan, leverage the season, and promote strategically. So as I look back on my journey, I am reminded of the times that I let fear and anxiety just hold me back. Procrastination, wanting it to be perfect, all of those things. But when I leaned into faith and then took action, doors began to open. This happened in my organizing business. I launched that business in the worst time ever during the mortgage crash, and clients were coming out of the woodwork. And it was because I leaned into my faith and I took action. And the doors open in ways I could never have imagined. And so launching up your podcast can be the same. Now, it's It's more than just sharing content. It's really stepping into your purpose, using your voice to impact the lives of others, and trusting that your efforts will bear. And so, as we approach the end of this episode, I just really want to encourage you with this thought. And I share this all the time. So, there is no such thing as competition. Why is that? Because you are uniquely equipped to share your message. No one else has your story, your perspective, or your voice. And if God has placed this idea in your heart, He's done that for a reason. Okay? So I like to close with a scripture. And so we're going to close with Isaiah 41:10. And it says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." And so as you step into this journey of launching your podcast, I really want you to remember that you are not alone. Remember that you have tools, the strategy. I just gave you a strategy, and the faith to make an impact. The world is waiting for your voice. That one person is waiting for your voice. With that, don't forget that every month I have a 5-day challenge showing you strategically how to create a roadmap to launch your podcast. And it's called Ready, Set, Launch My Podcast. It's a 5-day challenge where you get a comprehensive roadmap to launch your podcast in 5 days. And so there'll be a link in the show notes where you can sign up. It is every month. And if you want to get started and launched in 1 day, there will also be that link where you can book your success strategy call to launch your podcast in 1 day. Now is the time. Now is the time. So you decide, do you want to launch it in 1 day? You want to launch it this month? What do you want to do? Start with what you have. Start where you are and trust the process. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And I really hope you're walking away inspired to launch your podcast. Have a great day.